Hungry? First scene, right after we leave the menu, when Kratos appears sitting there, kind of wearing a fur coat. We already have the sign that Ragnarok is coming, which is the end of Fimbul winter, which are several consecutive, extremely harsh winters that begin in Norse mythology. Right after the death of Baldur, which happened in the first game, by the way. And here we have the goddess Freya, extremely pissed off, transforming into a bird, which is something she does a lot in mythology too, but unlike in the game, in mythology she needs a cloak to do that. Here she does it easily without anything, as if she were Mystique from the X-Men. Not that it's a bad thing. Just reminding you that the analysis of the first game from 2018 is already done here on the channel, and there will be a lot of things that will show up here as references too, which I won't mention because they're also in the first game and I don't want to repeat myself. If you want to watch it, check the description or the video's end. I ignore him. He always greets. Great. Ben here. All good, kid? Well, we have this here, who's a pet in the game, right? He's a normal wolf, and then Atreus kind of puts his soul into another dog, which we'll see later on. But just to let you know in advance, this Ben here is terrible, because he should be Loki's biological son, along with Gungnir, Angerboda, and a giant wolf, and he's even conscious. He talks in the mythology. Here, he's just a pet.
Are you coming with me? Done. Is it ready?
So here we are introduced to Fae, right? Or Laufey. There's no way to say if she's well represented or poorly represented, especially because Laufey doesn't get that much attention in Norse mythology. She's usually portrayed as Loki's mother and also called Now. In this case, she's probably called that because Now means thin or slender, maybe in reference to her appearance for being very thin. Another interesting detail is that in Norse mythology, Laufey is listed among the Aesir. She even gets along well with Odin, unlike in the game.
Atreus, where are you? Where are you?
This form of Atreus is a reference to several things. Mainly, I think the clearest reference is to the Berserkers, right? They were warriors who, when they went into combat, became so violent that people said they turned into animals and wore animal skins, mainly wolf skins, although bear skins became more famous. And also the story of Bjorn, who according to legend was the son of a king, King Herring, who ended up marrying a very wicked woman, a very strange one. She wanted to sleep with Bjorn, but he rejected her. And in response, she became completely furious. And she said that he would turn into a bear and would only return to his human form at night. What was that?
Your bow. Your bow. Your bow. Can I come in? I brought mead.
And here we have the appearance of Thor from a God of War, and I think his look, the character himself, is really good. He's big and fat, right? Which makes sense why they did that, because in mythology it says he's big even for a god, that he eats a whole ox by himself and is always drinking. Also, he's a redhead because Thor is a redhead in mythology, even though we picture the blonde Marvel Thor, which isn't accurate. But one thing that few people know is that Thor, in Norse mythology, doesn't summon lightning with his hand or with his hammer, okay? He's not like Zeus in Greek mythology, who literally has lightning in his hand, and he even throws it. Thor, in this case, is the personification of thunder. Thor, in Old Norse, means thunder. The sound of thunder we hear is actually the noise of Thor's hammer strike. The lightning is actually sparks from his chariot as he rides through the sky. By the way, you would also go to heaven if you hit the like button, those things you already know, but mainly, if you want to help me even more and can help me even more, become a member of the channel. It's less than 5 rays. You help me a lot with everything I do online, short videos, long videos, everything. Besides, you get early access to the videos that come out here on the channel, and also to exclusive videos like, for example, analysis of fictional mythology, Ben 10 mythology, Gravity Falls mythology, Naruto, and so on. There are videos there just for members. Videos on the anti-pope, vampires, and more. If possible, become a member. You can also support me by checking out the products currently on the screen. For example, the PlayStation 5 is at a great price right now. Check it out while it lasts. Also, watch the video on Norse mythology if you're interested. You'll find links in the pinned comment. Check them out. Clicking them helps me a lot. About Odin, the first thing I have to say is that, first of all, his ravens shouldn't go inside his body, right? Odin didn't have several ravens. Actually, there were only 2, Huni and Muni, who stayed on his shoulders. So about his appearance, I was a bit surprised at first, because he's old and has severe baldness. But looking at the game's script, you can understand why they made him like that. First, because in this case, they wanted to focus much more on Odin being the god of wisdom, right? Kind of an evil genius there. In other words, he focuses much more on strategy, on acting behind the scenes rather than direct combat. They didn't put much emphasis on the fact that Odin is also the god of war in Norse mythology. That's why he has a more scrawny appearance. But in Norse mythology itself, he appears much more as a grand god, right? Usually wearing a warrior's helmet, or sometimes in his wanderer form, always having his extremely long beard, worn out clothes, and a long hat, and always holding his spear, Gungnir. And Sleipnir was missing too, right? His fastest horse in Norse mythology, which doesn't appear in the game. And then...
what we, the Aesir, live to die for. And honestly, they were useless. But Baldo, he had value. He was my best tracker. He solved everything. Yes, he had gone mad. But he was useful. And now he's gone because of you. Do you understand? You have a debt. You're not funny anymore.
What do you want?
How about it? Peace? What does the retired god of war think about peace? How about we don't kill each other?
Yeah, in fact, the Aesir gods do, in a way, live just to die. But he treated Baldur here like he was nothing. And in Norse mythology, after Baldur dies, besides Odin punishing Loki severely, right? Actually, very harshly, because he literally killed Loki's son. And he used his son's guts to bind Loki himself. He also later tried to revive Baldur, sending a messenger to Hel.
That's right. I know you're here somewhere, you old trickster. Why should we believe? Your promises have never meant anything. Look at him, my old partner in crime.
Yeah, in a way, Odin and Mimir were actually pretty good friends in mythology. In fact, Odin drinks from the waters of Mimir's well to gain wisdom. And Mimir helps Odin's brother lead the Vanir, although he ends up losing his head in the process. But then Odin himself ends up reviving his head.
Be quick!
Huh? Finally. Huh?
Huh? Huh? Huh? Huh? Huh?
I didn't expect that. You're not. We haven't even killed a tradition. The blood payment. You owe me your blood for what you took from my family.
The blood payment that Thor is talking about is called Wergild, and it works like this. Let's say someone kills a member of my family. My family has the right to kill someone from the murderer's family. However, to prevent an endless cycle of killings from happening, which would be very likely to happen, the murderer's family has the right to try to pay the debt in another way, It could be with cattle, with land, with anything, and in a way my family wouldn't be obligated to accept that payment. But if they did, the matter should be settled forever.
Now we're talking!
An interesting thing that happens in that axe scene is that the axe ends up leaving a wound on Thor that never heals. It never gets cured. It's never explained in the game, at least I've never seen it. But it suggests that it has to do with the fact that in the first game, Jormungandr spat out the axe or something like that. In other words, the axe would have gotten her venom. And that's why it was able to hurt Thor, which is a reference to Ragnarok. Jormungandr's venom ends up killing Thor. But if that were really the case, the venom from the axe should have killed Thor, right? But, well, who knows what really happened there. Thor snapping his fingers to pull Mjolnir is really cool, but actually he could only pull the hammer if he was wearing the iron gloves, which are the Yarngriper gloves. And also, for him to lift the hammer, he would also need his belt, the Meggingjord.
You think you can come here and become a dad and get a second chance? That's not how it works. You're a destroyer, just like me.
Destroyer! You destroyer!
Ha, no! I say when it ends.
That scene there, besides being really awesome, also makes a reference to Thor's hammer in Norse mythology. It could resurrect things like he used to do with his goats. He would kill them to eat and then bring them back to life the next day.
What did he want?
To pay for the roof. And he invited me to Asgard.
Really? When I left, they did too, and I heard nothing more.
I said no. Obviously.
Look, Odin also invited Loki in mythology to be part of the Aesir gods. That's because he respected Loki a lot for his intelligence when it came to trickery. I just said it now as if Loki were Chapel in Colorado, but it's more about intelligence in the area of trickery, of cheating. What's the word? Deception. Anyway, in trickery.
When I talked about someone who could help to get answers about the giants and Loki.
Tyr, ancient god of war of this realm, who is dead.
For someone who's dead, he's gotten a lot of attention from Odin today.
Right? He knows that Tyr could unite the realms against him. Besides, Tyr was the greatest ally of the giants, so...
Sheikah. Tyr being an ally of the giants doesn't make that much sense, okay? Because actually he was the god of peace. But he fought in Ragnarok against the giants themselves. Besides, the giants were sworn enemies of the Aesir.
Oh man, come on!
Follow me, Eric. Bye.
I know it seems weird to have a centaur in a Norse mythology game, but actually there are centaurs in the mythology. I mean, not really centaurs, because in reality it would be more like half moose, right? Not half horse. The creature they're trying to reference here is actually the Elgafrud, which is also part of Bjorn's story that I've already told you about, the guy who turned into a bear. What happened was this. Bjorn ended up being hunted, but before dying in his bear form, he turned to a woman named Barry and told her she would have 3 children. The beloved queen in the story made the woman eat the dead bear's meat, which led her to have 3 children. Kind of bizarre. Thorir, who had dog legs, or rather, dog feet. Bodivar Bjarg, who would be the 3rd and youngest, was born perfectly human, but ended up inheriting the spirit and strength of the bear. And also Elgafrud, who was the first to be born. And from the waist up, he was an ordinary man, but from the waist down, he had moose legs and hooves.
What is this, man? Where are we?
In a place that only the giants could see, these altars tell their story to the world. But the thing is, the real stories, the secret ones, they kept those in here. Remember the story of Skoll and Hath, the giant wolves? Odin captured them because he thinks that will help him control the beginning of Ragnarok. But that's not the whole story. Look, this shows the giants freeing Skoll and Hath. Are they free?
Is this the past or the future?
It depends on when you look.
Did you talk to the giant, huh?
The wolves are fine. Somewhere in Vanaheim.
I doubt Odin even knows they're there.
Look at them, chasing the sun and the moon. Old habits. Even here, look, the moon is stolen. Somehow.
Atreus.
See, Heth has nothing to chase.
And they say celestial theft is a victimless crime.
I don't really know who it is, but someone shows up and rescues the moon, and then the moon blocks out the whole sun.
Total eclipse. I haven't seen one of those in 100 winters.
After that, they chase an arrow and things go back to normal.
What does all this have to do with anything?
I'm getting there. Look, it's Ragnarok. See who's leading the armies against Odin? It's Tyr. If he's going to show up for Ragnarok, that means he's alive, right?
Think about it. It's possible. Odin told me he killed Tyr, and he trusted me at the time. Or so I thought. What if he didn't kill him?
What if he just locked Tyr up somewhere all this time?
Here we go with the theories again.
Enough. So this Ragnarok would actually be kind of fake, right? But anyway, Odin wouldn't capture Skjold and Hati. They're always up there in the sky chasing the sun and the moon. And also, Tyr never leads any army against Odin. But yes, Loki does have this amazing scene here with Brock. That's exactly it. Yeah. Wait a bit. How did this get in here?
What is this weird little thing? That's my son. What in the name of Arsmida happened to him? It's way too loud, come on. And it stayed that way. Like this. It's your fault.
The kingdom is full of girls.
You know,
They'll need it.
they'll need help to know the right one.
Should we talk to Durlin? He's kind of like our cousin. Well,
Durlin or Dullin, he actually exists. In mythology, he's a dwarf, mentioned in verse 10 of the Voluspa poem. He was the second dwarf created, coming right after Mott Zogner, who was the first and most important. But he's never mentioned as being the cousin of Brock and Sindel.
wow, did you feel that?
What is it, man?
Something, all this heat.
This Svartalfheim is way too bright. It should be darker, because Svartalfheim would be the home of the dwarves in Norse mythology. And if they stay in the sun for too long, they end up turning into stone. And in this case, Nidavellir, they did something really cool, right? Because Nidavellir is the capital of Svartalfheim. But in the actual mythology, Svartalfheim and Nidavellir are the same name for the same thing, the home of the dwarves, or the dark elves.
I was thinking, it's really hot. Maybe it's just that the cold hasn't arrived here yet. Hey, maybe you're just Svartalfheim.
Is that it? Is winter over? It doesn't impact the realms the same way.
It's strange that the end of winter doesn't bring the usual cold.
To Midgard. But as you can see, the effects there seem to be much more gaseous in nature. Observe the geysers, notice the smell. These effects were already present before, but now they've reached a new level.
And in Norse mythology, it doesn't say explicitly how the end, winter, would reach all the realms, but it does say that snow would fall in all directions, implying that, yes, the end of winter would be a complete winter in all the realms. Maybe only the primordial ones would be safer, right? But Pionheim and Nilfheim.
No!
It looks like the artifact of the resistance, Anna. Dwarf, the king of the sea's bracelet, father of some dwarves you might know. Well,
In fact, Heimdall and King Mar had some very famous sons in mythology, right? For example, King Regem, a blacksmith and master, later became Sigurd O's tutor and hero, or Siegfried Otter, the shapeshifter who was killed by Loki, and Fafnir, who ended up becoming a dragon to protect the treasure he had stolen from his own brothers, and even from King Mar. Sindri, with really strong ADHD here, if these stones could talk. Then they would have mouths.
dirty, rotten mouths.
I could touch yours.
Shall we go back to the stories of Thor and Odin? Where did we stop? Okay, there was Tamur the builder.
That's right. He argued with his son, went looking for him during the night, and ended up finding Thor.
And there was Tamo's son, Tamur Rintur.
Who built the walls of Asgard, and he whispered something important to Freya before being betrayed and murdered.
There was Groa, of course.
The guardian of knowledge and prophet of Ragnarok. Thor killed her husband and Odin covered it all up before killing her with his own hands.
We can't forget Ymir, the first giant, Odin.
Cut him up to form the realms from his body and let the blood drown almost all the living giants.
In this part, we have references to several stories. First, we have the reference to Tammuz, Tamur, who is that giant who is a corpse from the first game, who supposedly tried to build a wall around Jotunheim, which is a reference, and then the story of the builder of the wall of Asgard. There, in Norse mythology, who in this case doesn't have a name, you also have the reference to the giant Ymir, who is the first giant of all, the one that Odin and his brothers ended up killing. And also Groa, who is a healer in the mythology who tried to heal Thor's head. After his fight against the giant named Ragnir, when a shard of metal ended up stuck in Thor's head, Groa tried to heal him, but she ended up getting distracted and left the shard there. Actually, if you think about it in the game, Thor should also show up with a shard in his head there.
A bomb?
Yes, but deactivated. It must have belonged to Barrio Bibario Dwarf, builder of the Grand Lure Hall.
There is actually a dwarf named Barry, with an accent on the A in the mythology, but he is mentioned very little and we know very little about him. And we also have the name Barre, which is given to the island or the forest, where the god Freyr ends up meeting the giantess he loved so much. Gerd or Gerda, whatever you want to call her.
That is the Drek. What happened here? Be careful, it's Drek.
Here, it's the name the Nordics used for dragons.
Did the baby Kraken give you a stone, Kratky Kraken? The amber? Yes.
It's covered in algae. Speaking of Kraken, we have Kraken in God of War BF Classic 2. And a lot of people think that the Kraken is part of Greek mythology, but actually it's not, okay? And it's not even part of Norse mythology. In fact, it's more of a local folklore around Scandinavia, around the seas of Scandinavia. I say it's not part of Norse mythology because it's never mentioned in the stories involving the gods. No, I'm not saying it appeared.
It's a loss. Panduro of faces, as if there were no tomorrow.
Bergzak could mean king of the mountain, while Bergzak Berzgatrole would refer to a mountain troll, a mythical creature linked to the mountain. The interesting thing is that Berzak can be either male or female. It was a creature that lived in the mountains with its family and was also sometimes surrounded by trolls.
Sorry, you told me not to think about it, but I can't help it. We spend all our time fighting against bad things, so why can't we do that alongside Tyr? We don't know him. We've seen the shrines. He's a leader. He stood up to Odin when no one else did. If he did it before, why wouldn't he do it again?
That part about Atreus, right, and several other things he ends up saying about Tyr, about fighting against Odin and all that, reminded me of something. What's really interesting is that possibly Tyr was the leader of the Norse pantheon. Before Odin, a long time ago, he was actually the god of the skies and so on. But over time, Odin ended up taking over his role. In these Hor's gauntlets, we have a reference to one of Odin's many names, Hor or Har, which means the high or the exalted. In the poems of Kvasir, we clearly have a reference to the god Kvasir, who is a god that appeared right after the war between the Aesir and the Vanir as a way to seal peace. There, all the gods spat in the same place, and from that, the god Kvasir was born, the wisest among the gods. But Kvasir ended up being killed by two dwarves who used his blood to make the famous mead, the nectar of poets, which whoever drank could become wise and know how to compose poems. The mead, by the way, ended up being stolen by Odin.
They definitely weren't, TYR. Let's continue.
This dwarf didn't escape. Is this a relic?
No. Megan is a very important word in that mythology. It means strength or power. In fact, it's on Thor's belt, Megging Jord.
What does it mean? What?
What?
That's...
What power?
And we have Tyr from God of War. It's not exactly Tyr, right, as we're going to see here. But anyway, we can already evaluate his design here, which honestly there isn't much to evaluate because Tyr isn't really well described in Norse mythology. The only thing we know about him is that he's a warrior, extremely skilled, and that he doesn't have both arms. And in the game, as we can see, he has both arms. I would even say it makes sense because actually Fenrir doesn't exist in the game yet, right? But they even have an explanation for this story about Tyr's arm, which we'll see later on. Honestly, I won't lie to you, it's kind of sad that Tyr has both arms here because if you take away that characteristic, it could actually be any other god. What do you want from me?
You mentioned Ragnarok. Is it the god of war that you wanted? Is it this Tyr that you need? Goodbye. Forgive me. I thank you for my freedom. But if you want me to join you in the war, or worse, that I command you, then kill me now. My will ended well.
We'll see several similar scenes from TYR throughout the game, being very pacifist, which makes sense and doesn't because in fact Tyr was the god of war, but also of diplomacy. However, one of the reasons he was chosen for Asgard was because Odin saw him fighting against several warriors and being extremely skilled. So much so that in God of War later on in the Valhalla DLC, they show this more warrior side of Tyr. We have Sindri giving Atreus quite a scare. It's tough here too.
Sleep?
Shh! You can't show up like this, okay? At the Tower of Alfheim now.
Long before you were born, there was an accident at the forge. Brok died. Since I hadn't accepted it, I went to the Lake of Souls in Alfheim to bring him back. Legions of souls tried to stop me. I can still feel them on my skin.
But
I only got 3 of the 4 parts of his soul.
we find out that Brok was revived by Sindri, right? And Sindri even ends up keeping the 4 parts of the soul, which do exist in Norse mythology. In this case, they would be the Heimer, which would be the form, right? Which is the external appearance, the shell, what people can see. There's the Hugger, which would be the mind or intuition, which corresponds to will and thoughts. Figya, which would be the companion, the guardian spirit that accompanies the person from birth. And Hamingia, which would be luck, success, but unlike what we think of as luck today, Hamingia was seen more as a hereditary spiritual force.
We trust in the path they want for us.
I trust their wisdom. That's the closest thing to hearing something directly from them.
Are you sure the giants wouldn't want war?
I said they were wise. In my experience, that also means being peaceful.
Saying the giants didn't want war is kind of pushing it, right? Their main one ended up causing everything. Loki? Did Loki just get really pissed off out of nowhere here?
I remember that food was the best.
Do you want to try cooking for everyone, pretty boy?
There's no reference in this part here, but something just came to my mind. Is there any scene in any other God of War game where Kratos is having dinner, lunch, or something like that? I don't think so, right?
Wow, what an impressive physique. He's capable of an immense variety of violent acts.
I guess. What is that?
That must be the squirrel caring for the world tree.
That incredible aroma. Could it be? Sorry for the interruption.
Yes.
Amber resin tastes delicious with a touch of squid ink. You don't like trying new things, do you?
Wait, if you're Rata Ratatoskir, why do you act so differently when we ask for your help?
It's a long story. But you're right, I am the real Rata Ratatoskir. The Rata Ratatoskir you know is just one of my spectrums, and he's pretty unpleasant. I consider him so distant from me that he's practically another creature. By the way, bitterness. Would you like to see your friends?
Screw it.
So guilty. Ratatoskir. Interestingly, in Norse mythology, Ratatoskir never interacted with any god or any human being. He doesn't have that. Spectrums, too, as he says in this part, right? Actually, Ratatoskir served only one purpose in Norse mythology. He would go up and down YG Yggdrasil as a messenger, carrying insults from Nidhogg, who stays down below in YG Yggdrasil, to the eagle that stays at the top of the tree, and vice versa. But the design is really cool. It's much better than if it were faithful to Norse mythology, since it would basically just be a regular squirrel. Middle. The reference here is to Skadi, right? The Jotun, who ended up joining the Aesir as well, who is a goddess of winter, hunting, mountains, and also skiing.
Is the brother of the nuns their role?
A long time ago, Freyr of the Vanir traveled to Alfheim, where he discovered a land devastated by war. With the divine powers he had, he began to cultivate a fragile peace among the elves.
So Freyr was actually kind of the king of Alfheim, right? The king of the elves. But he never made a peace agreement between the light elves and the dark elves. No.
Unfortunately for Alfheim, Freyr couldn't accept his sister's decision to marry Odin. He abandoned that realm and returned to Vanara.
As I said back in the first video, right, there was no marriage between Frey and Odin. Actually, what happened was an agreement between the Vanir and the Aesir to end the war, where they would basically exchange hostages. Then, Odin's brother and Mimir would go to the Vanir, and Freya, Njord, who was their father, and Freyr went to Asgard.
Why does the Temple of Light have a dark elf statue?
They were like that before the split. The split?
That statue represents the elves before the war, before they discovered the power of light.
Solid light. So there is a division among elves, but not exactly like it is in the game. We have the light elves, the dark elves, who are actually the Alfar, the Vanir, who are also classified as elves, and even the Aesir. Wow, it's the light.
I've never seen the Lake of Souls this volatile.
Do you think it's the end of winter?
That Lake of Souls actually reminded me of the domains of the goddess Han, who is a water goddess in mythology. People who died in the water drowned or however it happened would end up in her domain. Thanks.
Uncle Azur?
This Gran is a reference to the sword Gran, which in mythology was left by Odin for his descendants, for Siegfried's father, and for Siegfried himself. What happened to make you do that?
It was destroyed by the audience. I mean, by a member of the audience, huh?
Damn it. No, Thor didn't kill Kvasir. Actually, as I already said, he was killed by two dwarves, Fiala and Fjalar. No, I can't.
What is this place? Oh, come on. Damn, that's how it is. No.
Is it destroyed? But do the other realms prosper?
So we have the real Ragnarok from the game here, which would be a prophecy from Groa. In the game, she's treated as a prophetess, like I told you guys, but in mythology, she was more of a healer. This thing about Ragnarok being a new beginning actually makes sense. In fact, the world was reborn after Ragnarok, but it got everyone, okay? It didn't just get the gods of Asgard, no. On the armor, we have a reference to Vidar, who is the god of silence and vengeance in Norse mythology, son of Odin, who killed Fenrir, and also one of the few gods who survived Ragnarok. What animals are these?
Golons, they are from Vanaheim. I don't know what they're doing here.
Well, Golons are part of the local folklore there in Scandinavia, a legend, right? It's a creature that looks like a dog, that resembles a dog, but actually has several other parts from different animals, like the head, ears, and claws of a cat, and also fur and even a tail that looks like a fox's.
The ink is made from the bark of trees from the iron forest. They absorb the memories of the forest so the painting can remember as well.
So we are introduced to both Angerboda and the iron forest. In Angerboda's case, there isn't much to say because she isn't described that much in mythology either. The only thing we know about her is that she was a giantess who lived in Jotunheim, who met Loki and ended up having 3 children who will be responsible for Ragnarok: Fenrir, Hela, and Jormungandr. Now, there's also the fact that sometimes she's also considered the mother of Skoll and Hati, and that she would have had these children together with Fenrir himself. And in this story where she's the mother of Skoll and Hati, she's portrayed as a witch who lives in the Ironwood. However, the Ironwood isn't some whimsical place, despite what that scene suggests. It would just be a place located to the east of Midgard, which would be home to some trolls and also some mountain giants. It's not a special place for the giants, no.
Of our people, he died a long time ago, right? Odin killed him.
Yeah. Odin destroyed everything that was left of him, except for one thing.
Here we have again the story that Odin supposedly killed Ymir all by himself, right? But that's not what happened, as I told you. He had help.
Do you transform into any animal?
Not yet, but that might be possible because of your god side, not the giant one.
And no, Angerboda. Actually, the giants also transformed, like the Asi, who turned into an eagle or a falcon, and Loki himself.
Yahtzee.
Rotor. Hey, be careful. Let's go.
We have Thiassi being mentioned here, even in the scene with the marbles, right? Where the giants came with marbles or glass balls, whatever you call them. Thiassi in this case would be the giant who tried to kidnap Laeduna. Actually, he didn't just try, right? He managed to kidnap Laeduna along with Loki, but later ended up being defeated by the gods. And Bara, in this case, is a sea deity who is the daughter of the Jotun Aegir, who would be the personification of the waters in Norse mythology. Okay?
I wanted to ask you, your mother used to have visions. Do all giants foresee the future?
Some do. Through dreams.
That's right. I dreamed about Thor once.
Look, I don't really remember if giants had the power to see the future, okay? Unless you consider the Volva, who would be the prophetess from the Voluspa, as a giant. Or Mimir, a giant. Or even, who knows, the Norns, right? In fact, there were several different types of Norns, right? Some were Aesir, others Vanir, and some were giants too.
She's not well.
You should thank me. What good can a soul do, huh?
Man, putting Grilla in this game was something I didn't expect, huh? Actually, Grilla isn't exactly from Norse mythology. In fact, she's a legend. She's kind of part of the local folklore, let's put it that way. She mainly shows up around Christmas time and is a bogeyman, meaning she loves to devour children. But she didn't live alone, okay? She had her husband, who was Lepaludi, and the Yule lads, who were her sons, who visit people on the nights before Christmas. And the Jolakutterin, which is a gigantic cat that hunts people who didn't get new clothes for Christmas. Since she's characterized as a kind of troll, it actually makes sense for her to live in Ironwood. But she has zero connection to Angerboda. And then Freya appears in her Valkyrie form, receiving the name Vanadis, which is one of her names in mythology, meaning Dis of the Vanir. And Dis, in this case, would be the female deities associated with fate, protection, and fertility.
Did the old one-eyed one send another god to do his dirty work? Doctor, couldn't he?
We don't serve health.
No. You picked a risky spot to walk. Don't you think so? I know that voice. I know the voice.
I know it.
I know. I would cut off your head. But it seems I arrived late.
We have Freya showing up, and he's making a reference to the exchange of hostages between the Vanir and the Aesir. In this case, when that exchange happened, Odin's brother, who went with them, was supposed to be the new leader of the Vanir and decided to settle things. But he could only solve things when Mimir was around. And the Vanir then felt kind of deceived there, ended up cutting off Mimir's head and sending it to Odin, who brought the head back to life. So the really cool thing is that in this scene, where Freya seems like she's going to go after Kratos, he ends up pulling something out. It looks like bone there on his waist, as if it were his sword. That really reminded me that in Ragnarok, since Freya had given his sword, which was a sword that fought on its own, as a gift to his father-in-law so he could marry Gerda, he ends up having to fight Surtur with a stag bone or even a branch. Enough.
Stop.
What is that? How can you use her voice?
It's me, Ingwi.
And we have Freya calling Freyr by one of his various epithets or titles, right? Ingwi, which means the Lord. And we have this Sol written with an accent, which is the name of the sun goddess from Norse mythology. I don't think so. I'm still here, not lost. Good.
Yes.
I do.
This other one.
Before Atreus.
The name was Kalayubi.
Kalayubi.
What happened?
It was a long time ago. In this case,
I don't even care, I shouldn't even ask.
I know your son's story. I'll tell you my daughter's story. In the service of a cruel god, I was used to destroy a village. I didn't know my wife and daughter were there until I had their blood on my hands. I swore revenge. Yes, that's it. I can't even imagine. I avenged their deaths 1,000 times and burned all of Olympus. But the guilt remained. Maybe you'll kill me, Freya, but that won't bring you peace.
That's what we are, and so close to life. The Nokins in Norse legends would be creatures that disguise themselves to lure their victims. They disguise themselves as objects and animals, and mainly use music to hypnotize their victims. One way to break the enchantment is by shouting their name, which Freya actually does at the start of the scene.
In Sparta, we were taken from home when we were still young and raised in the Agog. It was march or drown, fight for scraps, or go hungry. The elders would beat us until we couldn't take it anymore. At night, everyone would return home alone or become wolf food. That's how Spartans are raised.
Kratos talks about his childhood back in Sparta, right? He talks about the agoge, which was actually the military education in Sparta. Everything started right at birth. Unlike other Greek cities where the father decided if the baby would live or not, in Sparta the baby was taken to the elders of the tribe. They would start to see if the child would be weak, sick, or anything like that, which would prevent them from serving the state. At the age of 7, boys were taken from their mothers and sent to state barracks. From then on, life was based on deprivation. They went hungry, received only a cloak, and slept on beds made of reeds. And they also lived under constant supervision there. And both the elders and other adults had the duty and the right to punish any child who showed weakness or disobedience. And there was also the ritual of Artemis, right? Where teenagers were publicly whipped in front of the altar of the goddess. The goal was to see who could endure the longest without screaming or showing pain. Some young people even died during this endurance ritual. Go, lady. And we have Nidhogg, as they call it, right? Which would be the dragon from Norse mythology that stays there at the roots of Yggdrasil. It keeps gnawing at the roots, trying to destroy them to make Yggdrasil fall, and by doing so, bring an end to everything. According to some versions, this dragon is supposed to come out during Ragnarok. Now, who it fights against is never mentioned, But it's interesting that they included it exactly in the Ragnarok game.
I think... Which is the moment? It's when I forgive. Or I kill you.
You've already decided.
To be honest, I can't have either of them. I have a part of me. He's so furious.
And he always will be! The hatred will never go away!
But no, it's no. You're not the one who has to die.
Right after we kill Nidhogg, Freya ends up breaking free from the curse Odin had put on her. And she kind of goes into shock there. She simply forgave Kratos. And forgiveness is something that's everywhere in this game. There's forgiveness all around. It's like there was a forgiveness sale going on. I found it sudden since seconds earlier she told Kratos to shut up and their deal was temporary. She even said she'd beat him up when she could. Anyway, let's move on.
Excuse me, sir. May I have a minute of your attention?
Oh heavens, Zeus! Zeus! What should I do?
What do you want?
I've learned that Nidhogg has been killed. Because of that, her offspring are loose throughout the 9 realms.
So what?
Unfortunately, without someone to supervise the creatures, those little pests are definitely going to cause trouble. Over time, these pranks could culminate in them devouring all 9 realms.
After Lady Nidhogg kicks the bucket, if we pass by Sindri's house, we might get called by Ratatosk. He'll tell us about Lady Nidhogg's children, which they call lindworms, which is actually another name for serpents. That's because in Norse mythology, Lady Nidhogg actually didn't gnaw at the roots of Yggdrasil alone. She had help from some smaller serpents. And believe it or not, they had names. They were Grabak, Grafalut, Gravitnir, Goin, Moen, Ofnir, and Svafnir.
Sink your blades into my vines and make the arrow burn.
Your brother seemed receptive to help.
I know he wants everything to go back to the way it was. For him to let me take over the leadership responsibilities.
In that scene, it suggests that Freya would be the true queen of the Vanir. But that never happened in mythology. The one who ruled the Vanir was Njord. Right after Njord, then came Honir, who would be Odin's brother. But the main one was Njord, who is the father of both Freya and Frey.
Wait. Are Skoll and Hati in Vanaheim?
We learned the giants saved them from Odin and brought them here.
And look, the sunlight awakens the sleeping roots. They stretch out to receive. It's beautiful, isn't it? Very different from the layers of snow I'm used to in Midgard.
In this scene here, we can see the beauty of Vanaheim, the land of the Vanir, and it really matches the mythology, because it would truly be the most beautiful realm of all, because after all, it's the home of the gods of fertility, the gods of nature.
Not believing that he has changed. He's all I have left. Did you apologize to Deimos?
Reference to Kratos' brother Deimos. Well, my ex-husband Thomas is so severely in the darkness. He's saying he's home.
Married him, and I take it the same way. He scattered my people to the wind. Maybe it's time for someone to set a limit, for someone to make the witch's prophecy come true.
I know very well that this part where Freya talks about her ex-husband is referring to Odin, but it still reminds me of Freya's true husband in Norse mythology, Odin, who, according to the story, simply disappeared from Freya's life at a certain point, leaving her so sad that she cried gold. And Freya set out in search of her husband all over the world, but ended up not finding him. Many even say that this odor is actually Odin, right? But there's no way to confirm it.
We lost everything to that madman you used to call your husband. His family set me on fire.
That part there is Frey saying that the Aesir kind of tried to set him on fire. It reminded me that one of the reasons for the war between the Vanir and the Aesir was that Freya herself went to the Aesir and kind of showed them her magic, the satyr. And then the gods started asking her for a lot of things, and the gods themselves started blaming Freya, saying that she had kind of corrupted them, that they couldn't solve things anymore without Freya's magic. And they even nicknamed her Gullveig, which means greed for gold. And they tried to kill Freya in every possible way. Odin himself started stabbing her with his spear. They tried to set her on fire, but she wouldn't die. And when Freya returned to the Vanir, she told them what had happened. And that's how the war between the Vanir and the Aesir began. In Freya's outfit here, we see little about the aspects she represents. We have the witch Maltrapila representing her being a goddess of magic as well. Her aspect of war, which is the more valiant side. Kylia, let's say, right? With the war dress. And also the promise of agony, which I think actually I might be stretching a little bit here. But I'm going to think here that this promise of agony is a reference to her also being a goddess of death.
At Freya's camp, the elves mentioned a gate like this in Alfheim, and a sanctuary of light elves after the arid lands.
In this scene, we have the mention of the elves' paradise, which actually exists in Norse mythology. I'm not talking about Alfheim here, okay? But actually, it's about a specific palace called Viti Vidblain, which is located in the third heaven called Andlang. And it is said, according to the prose Edda, that no one besides the light elves inhabit these mansions.
Leave me alone. Listen, let me go. Stop. No more. Damn it, let go. No.
And I sincerely hope that those scenes where Atreus appears acting kind of dumb or like a teenager aren't actually just Santa Monica's way of saying it's his Loki side acting up. Throughout the whole game, we have scenes like that, right? With Odin kind of using his ravens to teleport. That doesn't actually exist in mythology either, okay? Odin's actual means of transportation would be his horse, Sleipnir, which is the fastest in all of Norse mythology.
The wall. This is Asgard. Hold on. I'm coming.
And we have the wall of Asgard there, which is really awesome to see. Although I think the wall was actually a bit on the thinner side, right? It's just that in the case of God of War Ragnarok, the one who built the wall was really a giant. A real giant, right? Huge. So much so that as Atreus climbs the wall, he kind of goes inside the wall. And there's its own ecosystem there because the wall is so thick. And it's also good to remember that in the story of the construction of the wall of Asgard in mythology, the gods ended up killing the giant who was building it before he finished the wall of Asgard. Then, after it was done, it was the gods themselves. And as far as I remember, there weren't any cities built near Asgard. And even less near the walls of Asgard, because actually that would kind of be the reason, right? Because those walls were built so the gods could protect themselves from trolls and giants. So if you built a city there, you would probably be in some danger from those creatures.
I'm just getting my bearings.
Well, there's nothing to see here except for this wall.
Is there a gate to go through?
No? Only if you were an Aesir god, but I think you would know that if you were me.
No. I'm from Midgard.
What the heck? I'm Skjoldr too.
Loki.
We also have Skjoldr being introduced, who was one of Odin's sons according to the mythology. And according to what they say, right, he was sent by Odin himself to rule the lands we now know as Denmark.
Wait, are all of you from Midgard?
Yeah? Well, All-Father saved us from desolation. He gave us a safe place to stay. But we won't go there.
You need to know magic to enter the city. You don't know magic, right?
No, you didn't need magic to enter Asgard, right? Actually, you had to cross the Bifrost Bridge, or sometimes you didn't even need to go through the Bifrost. If you were a giant like Thor, you could just walk through the waters. Actually, that turns out to be a lie even in the game, because Atreus himself ends up climbing the wall of Asgard.
That was Hugh, Who? He's a great guide, but I don't think he knows much about climbing.
It also mentions Odin's 2 ravens, who in the game are the main ones, right? Because Odin has several. But in the actual mythology, it's just those 2.
Hello. Hi.
So, which part of the giant wall made you think? They must want visitors.
Then Heimdall shows up, and even though Heimdall's personality has nothing to do with his mythological self, since Heimdall is actually one of the coolest among the Aesir gods. Now, physically speaking, his main features are there. In this case, he has golden teeth, which is actually one of the names he goes by, okay? He is also called Gulintani, which translates to the one with golden teeth. And there's also his vision, where he appears with his eyes glowing kind of purple, kind of violet. I'm not exactly sure. The game says he uses this vision to read people, to read their minds, kind of predict what they're going to do. But in mythology, both his vision and his hearing are extremely sharp and used, so he can watch over the borders of Asgard to see if anyone is coming, or even if Ragnarok is approaching. If he sees any sign of that, he blows the Gjallarhorn, which is his trumpet, or the horn. I'm not exactly sure what the name of that thing is. Gultoper.
Who loves me more?
Who loves me more? In this case, Gultoper would be Heimdall's horse, not a rhinoceros, animal, whatever. I don't even know what that is. And as we walk around there with Heimdall up to his trap for Atreus, we can see some really cool things like the Valkyries and even the Einherjar who are fighting there, which is basically what they do throughout their entire afterlife there in Asgard. They're always fighting, getting ready for Ragnarok. And right at the beginning of Heimdall's meeting with Atreus, we can already tell that Handel doesn't like him at all, which makes perfect sense because in mythology, Loki and Heimdall are destined to fight each other and die at each other's hands in Ragnarok.
Loki, you came. I feel honored. I see you've met Handel.
And that little Odin outfit there, kind of wearing a little hat, something to warm his bald head, really reminded me of the outfit Odin wears in mythology to blend in among humans, his wanderer's clothes. He's even using his spear in this scene as if it were the staff he uses to support himself when he's in his wanderer form. The only difference is that he's really well dressed, right? If he wore a more ragged outfit, or even a pointier hat, it would look exactly the same.
Wrist missed, carry on. Pretend I'm not here.
We have 2 Valkyries introduced to us who are down there training the Einherjar, which are Wrist and Mist, who actually exist in mythology, but in fact they're more often listed as serving mead in Asgard, or rather in Valhalla, which is Odin's hall. Kini Ajinat, the Einherjar, can now receive your blessing.
Isn't that why I'm here?
And then we meet Gina as well, who's kind of the new queen of the Valkyries. But Gina isn't exactly a Valkyrie, right? She would actually be a goddess who sends messages to other worlds for the goddess Frigg, who is Odin's wife, and she even has a horse, which is Hofvarpnir. But why me? Because I'm part
giant? Well, so is Thor, right?
Odin is right, actually. Thor is also half giant, since his mother is Jord, who's an earth giant. And actually, it's not just him, okay? But actually, all the gods there would be part giant, or part Jotun as well. That's because, at the very beginning, the ancestor of the gods, Buri, ended up choosing one of the primitive giants there to have his children, who would later also give rise to Odin, Vili, and Ve. See?
Look, don't overthink it. I have a project that I think will interest you. It's a great learning opportunity for both of us.
We have here the aspect of Odin as the god of wisdom kind of being shown to us, right? His great thirst for knowledge, even in Norse mythology itself. Odin kind of invites Loki to live with him. I mean, not exactly to live with him, but to live with the Aesir, because Loki's very good at a specific type of wisdom, as I mentioned in the first video, right? Which is trickery. All-Father.
There's a situation you have to see. Sif, you haven't welcomed our guest. Say hi to Loki.
And here we have Thor's wife being introduced to us. Sif, who is kind of the goddess of fertility of the harvest. She looks gorgeous there, very well represented. There's nothing to say about her. In fact, she has golden hair, which is her trademark. In this case, that's her natural hair. But in the stories, Loki ended up shaving her hair while she was sleeping and had to make the dwarves create new hair for her. Otherwise, Thor would have finished him off. Well, right here, isn't it?
I have to admit that's pretty ironic.
Thrud also appears, who is Thor's daughter, and, well, we have very little information about her in mythology. We know that she is the daughter of Thor and Sif, but not much beyond that. And there's a story where a dwarf kind of wants to marry her, and Thor ends up tricking this dwarf, making him talk with him until sunrise so that he would turn into stone. But nothing much beyond that.
Yes. Didn't you see me waving and telling you that I already understood?
We have this scene of Odin talking to the ravens, which I think is really cool. The raven is probably telling him something it saw around the world, right? Maybe even something about Kratos himself.
See? It has the same mystical energy.
It opened a rift. Can we take a look?
I wouldn't recommend it.
And that rift that Odin mentioned, to me, it seems like a very clear reference to the story of Mimir's well, where Odin ends up giving one of his eyes so he could drink from the waters of the well of knowledge. In fact, several times, he says that this rift will bring him the knowledge he wants so much and all that, and that he even tried to take a look inside, but ended up losing one of his eyes. And that mask there has nothing to do with Norse mythology, but they probably took it from somewhere else that has a connection with Loki, which is from the movie Son of the Mask. Because there, it kind of tells us, right, that Loki ended up making this mask so that whoever put it on would gain his powers. Odin getting this little scare here is really good too.
So,
Thor, come down here.
All-Father. He went crazy.
Well, Atreus having to hang out with Thor, for me, would kind of be mandatory, right? Because in Norse mythology, Thor and Loki go on several adventures together. One of them, actually, is when Thor had to dress up as a bride to get his hammer back. Well, them walking around in Muspelheim is kind of weird, right? Because just by stepping there, they should be incinerated instantly. Only those who were born in Muspelheim can walk in Muspelheim.
It's starting.
Who is this? It's definitely not Swart. Look at all this ice.
Yes, Mara.
I don't think I've ever heard of her. Look, there's Swart.
Wow, that must have been quite a fight.
Yeah, so it finally ended?
Did they stop?
No, look, it's because they fought together.
So,
It seems like they even became friends. Good friends.
Are they?
Yes, I think they are, right?
Good. Good for them.
But it looks like the love made them merge and turn into a giant creature.
Haginoa, look.
I'm not even going to talk much about Sutur and Samara here now because actually they'll show up later. Actually, Sutur will, right? But the fact that they become Ragnarok seems really weird to me, man. It would be like that meme, right? I'm the mailman core for Ragnarok. Really strange. But no, that's not a thing. Ragnarok is an event, not a character.
Remember the snake we put a soul into?
It's impossible to forget.
I saw her. You're getting, bigger. And growing faster than usual.
Well, there's Angerboda saying that Jormungandr is growing. And even though Jormungandr's birth in God of War Ragnarok is completely strange, weird, and wrong, when Odin throws Jormungandr into the seas of Midgard, she's tiny at first, but keeps growing until she becomes a colossal creature.
Nilsson, you're right. Come here.
Whoa.
Where do we find the Norns?
I found some of her hair strands near the lake. I kept it to do magic, but we can use it to find them. Just remember that they don't want to be found.
My Norms had several, right? There were Norms who were Jotuns, Norms who were dwarves, elves, Vanir, Aesir. But the main ones, the three main ones, stayed at the Well of Erd, which I would place right under Yggdrasil. They stayed among the roots of the tree, and in fact they would even pour water on the roots to heal them from Nidhogg's attack. I don't remember, I came back.
Here after our battle?
With Sigrid.
She also speaks proudly of what she loved.
Do you know about this?
She told me everything when she met me. She had seen an ally in you, long before I heard about it.
The Valkyrie Queen, Valkyria, the first one.
I am the Valkyrie Queen. And Sigrun was really determined, right?
Here we have a reference to Sigrun the Valkyrie, who is apparently connected with Mimir, right? The two of them apparently hooked up. But Sigrun, in mythology, was a princess and a Valkyrie who ended up rebelling against her own father after falling in love with a hero named Hel. And to avoid the forced marriage with a suitor she didn't really like, she ended up flying through the skies to ask Helgi for protection. This triggered an extremely bloody war. The conflict ended with victory there. The hero, but at the cost of the death of almost all of Sigrun's family. Only her brother Dag remained, who swore revenge and eventually ended up killing Helgi with a spear borrowed from Odin himself. And completely saddened by the death of her beloved there, Sigrun cast terrible curses upon her brother and spent her nights watching over her beloved's grave. And even on a certain night, Helgi ends up returning from Valhalla in his ghostly form. Sigrun ends up entering her husband's tomb, embracing him while he is dead, and eventually dies of grief sometime later.
Public phono swordhand.
Man, I know that sword hilt. Be careful. You know very well how weapons work in containing ghosts.
If this doesn't help find the notes.
We have the Skofnung sword being referenced there. According to the stories, right, it was a legendary sword of a king named Rolf Krak. And according to what they say, it was the best of all the swords ever carried in the Nordic islands.
Freya is right. They know how to discourage visitors. Odin tried several times. He never told me what he found out. Did he give up or did he want to forget what he saw?
And here it says that not even Odin could interfere with the Norns' decision, which is actually true in mythology. After all, the Aesir gods are mortal. They end up dying. Odin even tried to prevent Ragnarok in the best way he could, but even so, he couldn't change fate.
Freyre Vesvani, Mistress of Magic, Queen of Voices of Voice, Frick the Asgard.
We have Freya being called Frigg here. In the game, they end up being the same character, but in mythology, they're not. Frigg would actually be the goddess who is Odin's wife, and Freya is the Vanir goddess.
And she is the Aesir goddess.
Here we go.
Advisor Rolos, ask her something from your side. I wish you a good morning.
If I guess, am I wise in everything, tireless and inveterate? They will come, they saw, I'll say, the smartest man alive.
And Mimir being called Puck, or the Hobgoblin Robin Goodfellow, which in this case is the elf, gnome, hobgoblin, goblin. Very famous in Shakespeare's story.
Wait, calm down.
Girl, calm down.
That's right.
Good.
Do you want to discuss what the Norns put you through?
No.
I'm a good girl. Lovely creatures, but they have a reputation for being temperamental. Back home, they used to keep children away from lakes by saying that a Kelpie would drown them. Of course, no Kelpie would ever do that, only if it was disrespected.
Does she walk on water?
Yes. There is no mystical aquatic mount in Greece.
There were the hippocamps. They served the god of the sea.
And we arrived at the Well of Uther, which, as I told you, was the place where the main Norns stayed. And there we have, waiting for Kratos, Kelp, which is a creature from Celtic mythology, also extremely dangerous, that would lure people to ride on it. And when the person trusted it and got on, the kelp would take them to the bottom of the waters and then devour them. And right after the kelp ride, we have what seems to me, though I could be wrong, a Celtic song playing there. And along the way, we also have Kratos talking about the hippocamps, the horses that pulled Poseidon's chariot, actually seahorses.
Kratos stops and Mimir's head enters the Norns' home hesitantly. They finally arrived at their destination. Kratos speaks first.
I seek my son.
Do you know that your son is in Asgard? No. You seek the same thing as everyone who comes to us? To know the end of your story.
The ghost of Sparta frowns. The threat is harsh.
And then the Norns appear. And I thought it was cool that they kind of put the concept of the triple goddess in there, right? Showing one as very young, another as older, and another as elderly. Frankly, there's little to say since the Norns aren't detailed much. Wait.
That tree. Well, very interesting.
What is that?
It's the rope, man. The one Odin used as part of his endless and insane quest for the secrets of life, death, and everything else.
Right after that, we have a very interesting thing where a rope appears, and Mimir says it's a rope that Odin used to hang himself, which is a clear reference to a story where Odin himself ended up hanging from a branch of Yggdrasil, stabbing himself with his own spear, and stayed there until the runes were revealed to him.
Hey, I have an ideal thing in mind. Sindri, go get Draupnir.
The Draupnir ring is finally mentioned here, right? It's the ring that was made by Brok and Sindri as a gift for the Aesir gods in that competition caused by Loki with the Ivaldi brothers. It was one of the 3 gifts from the dwarves to Odin. It was a gold ring that always dripped and kept multiplying infinitely. The other 2 gifts were the boar Gullinbursti and also the hammer Mjolnir. Look, this lady of the lake who acts like a weapon forger reminded me of the Arthurian tales, where there's the lady of the lake who makes Excalibur for King Arthur. I know some people will say that Nimue has already been mentioned, and she's a different character in the God of War universe. But what many people don't know is that there is more than one lady of the lake in the King Arthur universe. So yes, I think that mermaid is a lady of the lake. But I have a question about this Draupnir spear they made. Like I told you, the Draupnir ring, Draupnir would keep multiplying itself infinitely and on its own. So technically speaking, when Draupnir was forged into that spear, the spear should also multiply itself on its own. But still, right, I believe they have the excuse to say that the Lady of the Lake kind of interfered with it and prevented that from happening.
I finally understood. It was here that Ymir was killed, wasn't it? The first giant.
Tell me, can you kill an avalanche? Stop a storm? He was like a force of nature, a focus of power. I was young, foolish. I saw a chance to create something more. I know you think it's cruel, but I did what was necessary to protect my own.
Here we have Odin talking about when he killed Ymir to create the world. He even says, right, that he wanted something more. That's why he killed Ymir. Which makes sense because in the mythology, he and his brothers, right, Vili and Ve, ended up killing Ymir so that he would leave the Gnungagap because they wanted to see the other worlds. And so, I don't know if I'm wrong, if I'm having a false memory, but I remember there's some part in the game where Odin ends up mentioning his brothers. But I just couldn't find it. If anyone remembers, if it's true or not, please let me know in the comments. I want to know if I'm crazy. Nobody wants to be good.
But not us. I don't believe in that. I believe you'll be a great Valkyria. I'll tell your mother.
And here we find out that Trudy dreams of becoming a Valkyria, which is very interesting. Because in mythology, Trudy is kind of mentioned among the Valkyrias, but no one knows if it's exactly the same Trudy, okay? If Trudy the Valkyria and Trudy, daughter of Thor, are the same character. And here Garmr appears, and in fact, in mythology, Garmr is mentioned as being bound to Helheim, often close to Queen Hela, but he's never actually mentioned as being a gigantic wolf. It only says that he is to the wolves or to the dogs as Odin is to the Aesir. And no, he doesn't open portals between realms there.
They never knew its origin, but some believed that you could see the secrets of creation with it.
It's an oracle.
Much, much more. Imagine becoming one with a source of infinite knowledge.
And here we have Utayar confirming my theory that the rift was inspired by the story of Mimir's Well of Knowledge, where Odin ends up losing his eye, because Uther even calls this place the source of knowledge, you know?
I don't believe it. Is it who I'm thinking of? You tremendous rascal. It's almost good to see you again. And on top of that, in the form of a man, or almost.
That's how they got your head out. Maybe now you'll stop being a drunk, shameless, and pervert. Trust me, he was a bigger scoundrel than I was.
I don't know him.
You don't recognize one of your own works?
And Hildisvine. And here we have Hildisvine appearing in his human form, which in this case, he should actually change his name, right? Because Hildisvine, in this case, is his boar form, where he's kind of like the goddess Freya's pet. When he became human, he was supposed to get another name, Otar, because according to the story, Freya disguised Otar as Hildisvine so that he could kind of discover his family's lineage. This scene is awesome, but I have a question. They say the wolves are sleeping because they stole the moon, but the sun still seems to be in the sky, right? The other wolf was supposed to be up there working. But anyway.
All right. Yeah, I don't doubt it. But that's strange. What was she doing here?
Odin used the roots of the World Tree as part of his spell to keep me from leaving Midroth. Midroth is the one who protects the roots of the tree. Wherever I go...
I see.
Njord, the father of Freya and Freyr, is mentioned. And we also have Freya here, saying that Nidhogg protected the roots of Yggdrasil, when in fact Nidhogg wanted to bring down the World Tree to end everything.
What idiots. Well, it's the Mistletoe Queen herself. What irony. How long has it been? Hey.
In this scene, Heimdall kind of annoys Freya, tries to offend her and all that. But in the stories of Norse mythology, interestingly, Heimdall has already helped Freya. Even when her necklace was stolen by Loki, Loki ended up turning into an otter and jumped into the water to escape. Heimdall went there and turned into an otter too. Sea lion? I can't recall exactly, but I think it's either an otter or seal. Anyway, he turned into a flippered animal, beat up Loki, took the necklace, and returned it to Freya. Man, this fight with Heimdall's really well done and pretty cool, at least until the end. But I have a question, which is this. According to what they say in the game, Heimdall kind of predicts the moves. He reads the person. So theoretically, he shouldn't be able to dodge the spear explosions that Kratos does there, because he can see what Kratos is going to do. So he should know about that, right? And we have Hofud being mentioned there, Heimdall's sword that he uses in mythology.
Where is the boat?
Throw this in the river. Hurry, that won't hold them for long.
No. Wow, of course. Skidblad, Freya's boat,
They're regrouping. We have to leave. We also have Skidbladnir, one of the treasures from that battle, or at least connected to it. From the competition between Divaldi's brothers and Brock and Sindri, Divaldi's brothers made Skidbladnir, right? Which is a boat that can be folded to fit in a pocket. Odin's spear Gungnir, and also Sif's new hair.
So I found out what went wrong. I translated something wrong here.
Really?
I thought it said beyond the cry of the cold breath, but actually it says the cry of the first breath. Well,
That's in a different place. I know where it is. You did it again, young man. Go, get the sword, the mask, and the bird. Find Thor.
Go to Niflheim. Here, Atreus mentions the first breath, and Odin already recalls Niflheim, one of the first two worlds, the two primordial ones, right? Along with Muspelheim. But in the case of the first breath, it also reminded me of the story where Odin ends up creating the first humans, because he gives the breath of life to the beings that were created from wood.
then a log. I don't think this is a good time, right?
So if you want time, I understand. There's Thor, drinking, drunk. That's just how Thor is in mythology. He drinks a lot. Although I doubt he actually gets drunk, right? But in mythology, Thor really drinks because he likes to drink. But in the game, of course, he likes to drink too, but he also drinks a lot because of his family, right? Which is pretty complicated. You're welcome.
Excuse me, why are you here?
His father killed Heimdall. Forsate has proof. Take me. And we have the god Forsate being mentioned here, which actually makes a lot of sense for him to be mentioned in this case, because he is the god of justice, public judgment, mediation, and reconciliation.
He killed my children. He sleeps in their bed. He turned my father against me, my daughter.
I don't know what's going on.
I finally thought of something I can teach you. And another thing.
You'd better be right.
Sindri, no, don't!
And this moment here was Atreus' craziest moment when he was almost killed by Thor because he touched her. I mean, dwarven magic never makes sense.
There was a time when Lunda made me a flat chest plate.
You're back? And that line from Frey talking about the dwarves, right? That they do strange things like, for example, chest plates and dog barking is a reference. The making of Fenrir's collars. Actually, not a collar, right? But chains, which is called Gleipnir. And to make this chain to bind Fenrir. They use the sound of a cat's footsteps because cats always move in silence, right? A woman's beard. That's why women don't have beards. The roots of a mountain. That's why mountains don't have roots. Bare tendons. And the breath of a fish, and that's why fish don't breathe air like we do. And bird saliva, and that's why birds don't spit.
Wait a second. All neat now. Now I want to know more about this path to Asgard that you know. Tell me about it. It's ancient. You can't get there from here. So from where?
I'll get my things and show you.
You don't have any stuff. And where are you going with that mask? Brock, this belongs to the boy. He earned it. You just made a so-so mud soup, Brock.
Everything's fine, right?
Okay. No, it's not right. Nothing makes sense here, damn. Like, why does he keep calling you Loki? You know that's not his name. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I was stuck with the mess.
And here, in this scene, we have the biggest plot twist in the story, right? Which is Odin being Tyr up until this moment, and this moment right here. This is exactly what Loki would do, so it's sad to see Odin doing it. It's also impressive that it lasted up to this point, and even beyond, right? Because I've seen the whole game, Atreus didn't do anything this Loki-like.
I'm not going to help. Who are you? Who are you looking for? What is left of him?
Why won't you help us?
I'm just not in the mood, okay.
And here, we can talk a little about Surtur and Samara. In this case, Samara is mentioned in a specific poem, nothing more than that. Actually, it doesn't even link her directly to Surtur. It just says that she's waiting for the chest, which has a weapon inside. And they say that this place where the chest is would kind of be Surtur's dwelling. Now, this Surtur, I'll tell you, it's pretty complicated there too, right? Because you see, Surtur in Norse mythology is always waiting for Ragnarok. He can't wait to leave Muspelheim, which is where he wanders, right there on the frontier. To beat everyone up, and this Surtur from God of War Ragnarok is extremely lame. He even starts off saying he doesn't want to take part in Ragnarok or anything like that. Then he starts with all this romance talk, which is extremely annoying and doesn't make any sense here. Then Kratos puts the spears there with his fire into Samara's heart. And then there's the worst part for me, when he says the phrase, I am Ragnarok. It's like Eleven saying, I am Stranger Things. This part here is terrible, and I'm not even going to start talking about the fact that Surtur's design, both normal and Ragnarok, is terrible. But we can let that go for now. The I am Ragnarok part. And the romance there with the fire giant is a mess.
Bye!
Go here. I'm Ragnarok. And we also have Surtur kind of taking Kratos and Atreus so he can become Ragnarok there in Ginnungagap. He calls it the center of the world because it's kind of like Ginnungagap would be the meeting point of both the ice from Niflheim and the fire from Muspelheim. They ended up creating Ginnungagap from where the cow Audumla came, Buri, who is kind of the ancestor of the gods, and also Vili, Ve, and Odin. So guys, from here on out, from where Surtur appears actually, it's all the way to the final battle. It's kind of complicated to talk about because in this case, I was the one who set those expectations, right? I was the one who went and built them up. They claimed they'd adapt Ragnarok, so I expected something grand and awesome. But honestly, there's nothing Ragnarok-like about this final battle, right? Nothing at all. It's kind of like what happened with Marvel's Civil War in the movies, right? Because in the comics, there's a bunch of stuff happening, a lot of grand things, and then you get to the movies. It's an airport fight. That's what Ragnarok is. In Norse mythology, like I told you, it's an event. It would be the death of the Aesir gods and the rebirth of the world. We have Fenrir, who's a gigantic wolf in Norse mythology. And when I say gigantic, I mean it. No, right, not the size of Garmr that you saw there, or rather not the size of Fenrir, right? After Atreus releases Garmr, he tells Kratos, and the two of them go to Helheim to deal with him. And Atreus ends up putting Fenrir's soul from his wolf from the beginning of the game that was in his knife inside Garmr. Then Fenrir becomes a pet, but a giant one, and doesn't do anything else in the game. That's really it. In mythology, Fenrir has an extremely important role because, like I told you, he is gigantic. And when I say gigantic, mythology says that when he opens his mouth, his upper jaw, the top part of his mouth, tears the sky, and the bottom part tears the earth. He is as gigantic as Jormungandr, but of course, he is a land animal. Fenrir, simply put, in Norse mythology, he kills Odin. He devours Dist. And it's not like there was a battle. No, he devours Odin easily without any resistance. And also, in Norse mythology, we have Jormungandr fighting against Thor. That's even shown in God of War Ragnarok. But it's not quite the same, right? There wasn't much of a battle. We just saw him from afar. The two fighting, and then Thor hits Jormungandr and she travels through time. But that's it. In the case of the mythology, both of them end up dying. And Jormungandr is extremely poisonous in Norse mythology. So much so that when Thor ends up killing her, the venom sacs in her mouth burst, and the venom gets on Thor, and he dies. Still in Norse mythology, we have Loki going to Helheim, going to get the entire army of the dead for himself, and he brings everyone on a ship, which is a ship made from the nails of the dead. We have Hymir, who is the frost giant, also bringing all the giants with him to fight against the Aheriard, all the Aesir gods. Man, and we have the fire giants, the sons of Muspel, tearing through the sky, all of them flying. And Surtur's sword, just so you know, the story says it lit up the whole battlefield, brighter than the sun itself. And we have Surtur facing the god Frey. And the god Frey is without his sword, okay? Because in the game, he ends up getting it back. But in mythology, he doesn't get it back. He has to fight against the fire giant, who has a sword that shines brighter than the sun itself, using a deer bone. And of course he dies, and when he dies, Surtur simply burns the whole world. He literally resets the entire world. Okay, go ahead. Not the whole world, because there are some gods who end up surviving, like Vidar. In fact, Vidar is an extremely important god in mythology. He's the second most powerful in all of Norse mythology. He's the god who kills Fenrir with his bare hands. He breaks Fenrir's jaw with his hands. And then he simply becomes the new All-Father, right? He becomes the new supreme king of Norse mythology. This god simply doesn't even appear in the story. All of this, and I haven't even talked about the final battles in God of War Ragnarok, which are extremely disappointing, right? The final battle with Odin doesn't even compare to the final battle against Zeus in the classic games. And honestly, you don't even have to mention the third one. I don't think it even compares to the final battle against Zeus in God of War 2. Zeus becomes gigantic there. And here Odin, the most he does is scream. And on top of that, after they defeat Odin, everyone just stands around like, oh, I don't know what to do if I'm not killing anymore. Freya, who up until now wanted to kill everyone, suddenly says, no, now I don't want to kill anymore. Then Sindri has to show up and kill the old man. Man, they could have at least, I don't know, put Sleipnir there with Odin. Then you have Odin with Sleipnir and Atreus with Fenrir fighting each other and Kratos fighting Thor. Man, that would be so cool. But they didn't care about Fenrir. He appears in the final battle, kills some creatures, opens a portal, and leaves. His presence doesn't matter. I'll tell you guys, I expected a lot from Ragnarok and God of War Ragnarok. In the end, I got nothing. I think it had the potential to be the best game in the series. For me, I don't know. For me, I don't even think it makes it into the top 3. I still prefer God of War 3, the old Greek mythology one. God of War Ragnarok isn't bad, but it could be much better. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like the review, or if you disagree or agree with me, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you next time.